Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to unpack complex topics, pull out those crucial nuggets of knowledge so you can get informed fast.
Exactly.
And today we're diving into something pretty fascinating, maybe a bit uncomfortable too. It's about the surprising, often hidden connections between nations.
Yeah, how certain models, ways of controlling things, ideology, even tech, get passed around, adopted globally.
We've got a whole bunch of sources, articles, research history that really shine a light on these alliances, some unexpected partnerships, and similar ways countries manage populations and borders.
Right. So our mission really is to uncover these patterns.
Understand where they came from, what the consequences are, basically helping you connect the dots you might miss in the daily headlines.
Okay. Where do we start?
Let's start with an alliance that might surprise a lot of you. The deep and often pretty secret relationship between Israel and apartheid South Africa. The sources really suggest there's this shared worldview right at the core of it all.
Yeah, what's fascinating is how one source puts it, this contradiction at the heart of the Jewish state.
Okay.
The idea being that living as a Jew in Israel is actually far more dangerous than living as a Jew in almost any other place on earth.
Not because of Judaism itself, though.
No, not according to this source. It's because of the nation's political and military posture. And this kind of fostered this unique minority survivalism idea.
Right, a survival mentality.
Which then became a sort of common ground with apartheid South Africa.
It's interesting, though, because it wasn't always like that, was it? Initially, before 1967.
No, not at all.
Israel actually condemned white minority rule in Rhodesia. They even supported a boycott.
That's right. And Robert Mugabe, Rhodesia's first leader, he visited Israel back in 1964. He was looking for training for his resistance fighters.
Wow. But then 1967 happened. Israel becomes an occupier.
And everything shifted dramatically. Wow. By the 1970s, you see this really strong bond-forming political, military, diplomatic, ideological...
Full-spectrum alliance, basically.
Pretty much. And a key detail the sources highlight is the role of the South African Jewish community.
Okay, what about them?
Well, they were strongly pro-Israel, became its biggest financial backer per capita after 1948, and crucially, the majority benefited from and supported apartheid.
So there's a link there.
Definitely. And then you have the Israeli Likud party feeling this deep affinity with South Africa's worldview.
How so?
They basically saw both countries as threatened outposts of European civilization.
Right, defending themselves
against barbarians at the gate. That was the kind of thinking.
And these ideological parallels, they get even more specific, don't they? I mean, Ronnie Kasril's.
Yeah, the Jewish dissident who served in the ANC government, he drew some really stark comparisons.
He talked about the chosen people idea, right?
Yeah.
Biblical justification for racism and exclusivity in Israel.
And directly compared it to the Afrikaners' claim of a God-given right to the land.
He also brought up the land without people for a people without land myth about Palestine.
And paralleled it with the Afrikaner myth that there were no black people in South Africa when they arrived.
Yeah.
Very similar narratives.
And then there's that visit in 1976. That's just Israeli Prime Minister Rabin hosting South African PM John Vorster.
At Yad Vashem, the Holocaust memorial no less, and Vorster was a known Nazi sympathizer, member of that fascist Aseo Brandwag group.
And Rabin toasted.
Well,
what was it? Ideals shared by Israel and South Africa.
Yeah. Hopes for justice and peaceful coexistence. It's quite something when you consider Vorster's past.
So what really cemented this? What was the underlying logic?
Well, a few months after that visit, the South African government yearbook spelled it out pretty clearly.
What did it say?
It said, Israel and South Africa have one thing above all else in common. They are both situated in a predominantly hostile world inhabited by dark peoples.
Wow. Just blatant.
Pretty blunt, yeah. And this whole relationship was supposed to be secret under a 1975 security agreement.
But the defense industries, that wasn't so secret.
Well, the extent of it was meant to be. They became huge global players. Israel provided the know-how, South Africa provided the cash.
And the UN arms embargo.
Ignored it. Declassified documents show Israel kept selling arms secretly. There's even a quote from a former Israeli ambassador, Alon Leal.
What did he say?
He said, "We created the South African arms industry." Just laid it out there.
And it went beyond just guns and tanks, didn't it? The nuclear connection?
Yes. That's the most secretive part, according to the sources. Mutual support for nuclear capability.
Israel giving technical help. South Africa having the uranium.
That's the report. And allegations that South Africa let Israel test nukes in the Indian Ocean in '79, even an offer from Israel to sell nuclear warheads to South Africa in the 70s.
That's quite an alliance.
And beyond the military, the sources stress this shared ideological affinity about how to treat unwanted populations.
You mean the Bantustans?
Exactly. Those segregated territories in South Africa. No autonomy, designed to keep black South Africans contained.
And this inspired people in Israel?
Apparently, yes. Many in the elite saw it as a viable model for Palestine. You know, isolating Palestinians in these non-contiguous enclaves.
Like the West Bank today.
The comparison is made, yeah. And Israeli diplomats were publicly saying they didn't recognize the Bantustans, but declassified telegrams show that wasn't true.
It's startling how that kind of thinking echoes even recently.
Yeah.
Like Benny Gantz in 2019 saying Israel is the best place to be an Arab in the Middle East.
It's eerily similar to Vorster in '77 talking about the high living standard of black South Africans, deflecting criticism with superficial comparisons.
Even Verwoerd, an architect of apartheid, called Israel an apartheid state back in '61.
Yes. And Ariel Sharon, former Israeli PM, was known to be a fan of the Bantustan model, wanted to adapt it for the West Bank.
And when the relationship finally ended,
Israel was one of the very last countries to cut ties with the white minority regime.
Nelson Mandela's quote comes to mind.
The people of South Africa will never forget the support of the State of Israel to the apartheid regime. Powerful words from 1993.
Okay, so that's the Israel-South Africa connection. But how does this model, this approach, travel?
Well, that's the next big question, right?
Our sources suggest Israel's approach. One source calls it jingoism and unashamed pride in preferencing Jews above all else. It's like a transferable blueprint.
Like an easily transportable flat pack, as one source puts it. Adaptable.
So let's look at Israel and India, specifically regarding Kashmir.
Right. And the similarities highlighted in the sources are quite striking, especially after India revoked Kashmir's autonomy in 2019.
Direct comparisons to Israeli actions in Palestine.
Yes. Kashmiri writers like Arifaiz Peri talk about people being forced to do what they don't want to do, a loss of land, a loss of identity, both places.
Khurram Parvez said the annexation of Kashmir was as sinister as that of Palestine, but we have been forsaken. Heavy stuff.
And this isn't just ideological sympathy. There are hard numbers.
The weapons trade.
Huge. Between 2015 and 2020, India was Israel's #1 weapons export market.
43% of total sales. That's massive.
Made India the single largest buyer in 2020. And you see things like Israeli Heron drones flying over Kashmir, just like they do over Palestinian territories.
So the argument is India could oppress Kashmiris anyway, but Israel provides
What?
tools and legitimacy.
Kind of. The tools and legitimacy to pursue it with extreme prejudice is how one source phrases it.
And you see it in practice, like demolishing Muslim homes in Uttar Pradesh.
Yeah, the parallels are drawn directly to Israeli demolitions of Palestinian homes. Both sides claim the structures were built illegally. It's a similar tactic.
But India wasn't always this close to Israel, was it? Gandhi's stance.
No, definitely not. Gandhi in 1938 was against the cry for the national home of the Jews, saying Palestine belongs to the Arabs.
And India was part of the non-aligned movement supporting Palestine.
Right, up until 1992. But then the Oslo Accords happened in the 90s.
And India's interest shifted towards Israeli tech.
Weapons, drones, electronic fences. Yeah. Ariel Sharon visited India in 2003. They signed a statement calling each other partners in the battle against this terrorist scourge.
Which brings up the role of Hindu nationalism, doesn't it?
It seems crucial, based on the sources. The founder of the RSS, Golwalkar, apparently admired Nazism.
And Savarkar, another pioneer, wrote that India's Muslim problem should look to how the Nazis handled their Jewish problem.
That's what the sources report. So while not pro-Jewish per se, Hindu nationalists apparently long admired Israel as an ethno-state model.
The RSS chief praising Israel's strong resolve.
Exactly.
And the impact on Indian Muslims since Modi's election has been pretty widely reported. Lynchings, violence.
Threats, denying education to girls in hijabs.
Yeah.
Even pressure on Bollywood, apparently, to adopt an anti-Islam perspective.
And meanwhile, Israeli shows like Fauda are popular with right-wing Indians.
Seen as anti-Islamist propaganda, according to one analysis. The whole post-9/11 war on terror narrative just fit both countries' goals.
Pacifying unwanted population.
And Israel was actively training Indian forces in counterinsurgency.
There was that incident in 2020, though, highlighted in the sources. Israel refusing to screen Indian police.
Yeah, even after human rights groups petitioned their Supreme Court about abuses committed in India, Israel refused.
Shows where the priorities lie, perhaps.
It suggests the relationship itself was prioritized over those specific human rights concerns, yes.
And politically, Netanyahu and Modi really strengthened things.
Absolutely. And then that I2U2 forum in 2022, U.S., Israel, India, UAE, building even closer ties.
But not without bumps. That Israeli filmmaker Nadav Lapid calling the Kashmir Files propaganda?
Right. That caused a huge backlash from Indian nationalists and officials. Even the Israeli ambassador got involved, expressing concern. It shows the sensitivities.
And Indian commentators openly praising Israel's approach to Palestinians, urging India to do the same.
Yes. Like after Article 370 was revoked, one commentator praised Israel's handling of the silent intifada in 2014.
Implying Israel was less restrictive?
Yeah, but the source calls that a willful misreading because Israel was actually demolishing homes of suspected militants' families then.
Which Human Rights Watch called a war crime?
Exactly. So the comparison was perhaps based on a misunderstanding or a deliberate misuse of what actually happened.
And on the ground in Kashmir, these parallels are becoming more concrete, allowing non-Kashmiris to buy land.
Since 2019, yes. An attempt to change the demographics. Anuradha Basan from the Kashmir Times describes this stifling atmosphere.
More military, internet shutdowns, media suppression.
Yeah. She fears Kashmir is well on the road to becoming another Gaza Strip.
And the Citizenship Amendment Act in India, excluding Muslims.
Deliberately making citizenship tied to religion. The comparison is drawn to how Israel controls the Palestinian population registry, affecting life, work, travel. It's about controlling who belongs.
Indian officials are even using the fear of a Palestinian-style insurgency to justify crackdowns.
That's reported, yes. Like when that We Are Palestine mural appeared in Srinagar.
The artist arrested, others arrested for showing support.
Yes. Deface the mural, arrests. Sends a clear message.
And this bill's online too, doesn't it? The digital battleground?
Hugely. The hashtag India Stand With Israel, hashtag pushed by the BJP, lots of anti-Muslim hate reported alongside it.
The BJP's IT cell being compared to the IDF's online campaigns. Aggressive, misogynistic.
Highly effective at pushing their narrative, according to the analysis. And the Facebook whistleblower, Frances Haugen, pointed out how RSS-linked pages pushed fear-mongering, and Facebook struggled to moderate it.
Not enough editors for Indian languages.
Right. Which leads to Arundhati Roy's point. A big market is excellent insurance against moral censure. Harder to criticize when there's so much economic interest.
Okay, so we've seen South Africa, we've seen India. How does this model, this technology of control, spread even further?
This brings us to the global architecture of control, really.
Israel's missionary zeal, as one source puts it, to find like-minded countries.
Yeah.
Influencing immigration, counterterrorism, policing.
And leveraging that advanced surveillance tech. So let's look at China and then much closer to home for many listeners, the U.S.-Mexico border.
Right. The focus in the West is often on Chinese techno-authoritarianism, isn't it, as this unique threat?
Yeah, experts paint this really petrifying image of AI surveillance, total control.
But Human Rights Watch sees parallels.
Exactly. Similarities between the repression of Palestinians and the Uyghurs in China, using similar technology and methods.
And despite this idea of China being unique, Israel and China actually collaborate.
Increasingly so, according to the sources. Israel sold weapons to Beijing after Tiananmen Square in '89.
When most other countries had an arms embargo.
Correct. And Israeli companies like Mogal Security Systems, the ones who built walls in Israel, they've installed systems in Chinese airports.
So China looked to Israel for advice on handling perceived threats from radical Islam.
That's the analysis, both framing it similarly. And Israel was notably silent, a notable exception, when dozens of UN nations urged China to respect Uyghur rights in 2021.
Fits a pattern.
A decades-long pattern of turning a blind eye to repression elsewhere, the sources argue. And polling shows most Israelis favor stronger economic ties with China, even if it means ignoring human rights abuses.
So, if Chinese tech is seen as this global threat, why isn't Israel's role viewed the same way? Especially with things like NSO Group's Pegasus spyware.
Which has arguably impacted more people globally, yes.
But the outrage seems muted.
Well, the argument presented is simple. Israel is an ally of the West, not an official enemy like Beijing. is now framed.
So it's selective outrage.
A lack of care, perhaps, for populations suffering under Israeli-designed surveillance because it's coming from an ally. Even the UK engaging with China on counter-extremism practices highlights this kind of inconsistency.
Okay, bring this home for us in the U.S., the U.S.-Mexico border.
Right. This has become a huge market for Israeli security and surveillance companies.
And they explicitly use their work in Palestine as a selling point,
Yeah.
a recruitment tool.
That's what the sources detail, yeah. Battle-tested technology.
And there's bipartisan support in the U.S. for militarizing that border. Israeli tech is key.
A vital element, yes. The vision is surveillance tech, walls, fences, tactical units, all to stop migration.
But this militarized approach has deadly consequences.
Absolutely. Over 7,000 bodies found since the 90s. A massive increase in deaths between 2006 and 2020.
Why? Because the surveillance forces people onto riskier roads.
Exactly. More remote, more dangerous desert paths.
Magellan security systems.
Yeah.
Their stock jumped after Trump's election.
By 20%, yeah. Their brochures pitched their success with the Israel-Egypt wall, showing migrant numbers dropping to near zero. They stressed understanding infiltrator patterns.
And Elbit Systems, another big Israeli player.
They've thrived on the U.S. border. That big surveillance system on Tohono O'odham Nation land in Arizona, hugely controversial.
That's the Native American land that straddles the border.
Yes. Activist Ophelia Rivas talks about her lands being scarred, ancestral sites disturbed, constant Border Patrol intrusion. She called the Border Patrol terrorists crossing onto their land.
And Native American activists are seeing the connections themselves, visiting Palestine.
Yes, members of the Tohono O'odham Hamaksim Rights Network went in 2017. Palestinians actually warned them about Elbit's towers.
And Elbit demos in Arizona used designs originally made for the IDF.
A live demo in 2019 apparently showed a command and control design built originally for the IDF. The link is explicit.
So the post-9/11 climate created this military-style state on the border.
A rapid acceleration, yeah.
Right.
Where migrants and Native Americans living there are just framed as threats. Record deaths in 2021, 2022.
The similarities between the U.S. border and Israel's walls are growing.
Growing by the year, one source says. Tech companies always looking for new ways to target perceived enemies.
And the future looks even more militarized. Nearly $500 million for border R&D in FY 2022.
Yeah. The source raises the possibility, conceivable in the future, that migrants could be killed, captured, or maimed by military-grade drones or hardware.
Similar to Palestine now.
That's the parallel drawn. And many of the big contractors for U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Elbit, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, they're weapons manufacturers first and foremost.
Elbit's drones were the first ones CBP used on the border back in '04.
Yes. And the company donated to Trump's re-election campaign, too.
And those reported suggestions from Trump, shooting migrants, electrified fences, alligator trenches.
Truly disturbing ideas. They reflect that dehumanizing mindset that allows these harsh surveillance and control methods to be deployed. But there's growing awareness, right? Indigenous groups like NDN Collective connecting their struggle with the Palestinian one.
Resistance against colonialism and occupation.
Yeah. And that quote from the Tucson mayor, Jonathan Rothschild. Close your eyes and spin yourself a few times. You might not be able to tell the difference between southern Arizona and Israel.
Reflects a settler colonial mentality. Arizona as a testing ground, like Palestine.
For monitoring undesirable populations, yes, that's the argument. And it highlights the hypocrisy, outrage over Trump's policies, but often muted criticism of similar Israeli policies.
So wrapping this all up, we've taken a really deep dive today. Some uncomfortable connections.
Definitely. From Israel and apartheid South Africa.
To India and Kashmir.
And then seeing how surveillance tech developed in occupied territories ends up on the U.S.-Mexico border.
It really shows how these ideologies of control of survivalism can travel and find new homes.
And it reveals how labels like enemy and ally really shape how we see human rights abuses, how we see the transfer of powerful, sometimes lethal technology.
Makes you look past the headlines, doesn't it? See the deeper systems.
Exactly.
So what does this mean for you listening?
Well, it means understanding these patterns isn't just history.
No, it's about seeing how these models of control, of exclusion, can be copied and made to seem legitimate anywhere in the world.
It really raises a big question, doesn't it? As surveillance tech gets smarter, as nationalism spreads, how do we judge claims of security and progress?
Especially when they come at such a huge human cost.
So maybe think about where else these transferable flat packs of control might be popping up and what role we can play just by recognizing them, by questioning them.